It's not easy butchering people. It's hard work. You know, there's a lot more like me. We're talking to serial killers. Serial killers! New terminology. Are criminals born, or are they formed? How do we get ahead of crazy if we don't know how crazy thinks? It's easier to ask for forgiveness than for permission. Welcome to the Hollow9ine Mindhunter podcast. Okay, bringing to order case file number 004 of the Hollow9ine Network's ongoing behavioral sciences investigation of the Netflix original show Mindhunter. I am David Klone, documenting this officially for the network, and joining me on the panel for tonight's discussion with us again, fellow Special Investigative Agent and author and voice actor extraordinaire, Mr. T.W. Brown. Also joining us on the panel, similarly, voice actor extraordinaire, Studio Saloon 7 producer, and half of the Grit and Grace TV show, Mr. C.J. Ripka. And standing in again for our special agent, who now I'm starting to get concerned because this is 2 weeks in a row she's missing. But standing in for Jennifer Earp, we have with us for all the way from Red Hawk. Is it Red Hawk Radio? Am I getting that right?
Yes, the bird. No, it's a hawk that's painted red, and it's so red, but they're missing a syllable, so it's O. So that's why it's called Red Hawk Radio.
Well, okay, so the simple "you got that wrong" would have been just fine, but since I got it wrong, let me introduce him again to get it right for us. Mr. Zane Sexton, how are you?
YOLO, baby.
And we're back again to talk about everybody's favorite season of True Detective that is actually a different show on a different network altogether, Mindhunter. And the
we need to start taking up a freaking collection and deciding to bet on when you're going to mention that at some point, and whoever gets closest wins the pot each week.
Yeah, we could definitely do a pool.
What's the over-under on
the... How many times are we going
to... Is it going to be the beginning episode, end of the episode, or somewhere in the middle 10 minutes? You know, over, under, and middle. Yeah, man, you guys want to do it, we'll do it.
There we go.
We'll run
I'm
that.
Taking the over every week.
We're running that on the Hollow9ine Network's Facebook page. How many times will David Klone mention, or when will Dave mention how this is really a True Detective show? Already, we got twice going on now. And for being such true detectives as we are, you know, something that I'm sure some folks noticed we missed in episode 3, we didn't mention the cold open featuring the unnamed, to be mentioned later, to be discovered later, guy in action who basically is living the dream according to what we're seeing our agents discover on their journey. The BTK cold opens. Episode 3's was cool, but this one was definitely one of the first ones that grabbed my attention where I was like, oh shit, this guy...
that amped up the creepy factor real fast.
This guy is going to be bad whenever he cross paths with our heroes later down the road. This is going to be an interesting one.
That cold open, the way they do that, you don't know who it is, but yet at the same time you're already starting to form it. And now, of course, we're starting to call it the BTK Open, so we kind of figured it out. Apparently,
spoiler alert, guys!
Everybody at home has probably figured it out by now too, if they've been watching. But you know, the whole thing with him walking through the neighborhood and then going up to the door and then introducing himself, it's getting creepier.
Well, it was also that he was already, you know, she was like, oh, I didn't realize you were still in the house. It's like, whoa,
yeah.
What the hell's going on here, homeowners? Are you kidding me? Yeah. Like, you don't know someone's in your house? And that's his level of ninja, I would say. You know, I mean, what was that?
In confidence.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
It's the confidence this guy is exuding is just insane. I mean, he just walks around, does what he wants. he's unseen by everybody, even the people that know he's in the house at some point.
And last episode, we just saw him dropping something in the mail, but he definitely was wearing gloves doing it, and he seemed like he was making sure no one saw him. This episode, he actually interacts with the homeowner a little bit because as he's giving her an estimate for what their system would cost. He's an alarm system installation guy. That's his cover for his secret life of being a psychopath. He gives her the estimate, and she goes, "Hey, my husband was wondering, would you sell us just the stickers, for the doors and the front lawn?" And he has the same momentary, almost like a Twitch freeze of reaction to the same when the guy didn't have the empty roll from the tape, right? He was just like, "Yeah, the stickers come with the sensors, lady." It's like, you know what? I was about to leave and go back to being normal, but now I'm gonna kill you. You just made the list. Welcome to this shit.
Let me just grab my hit kit. Yeah.
That's some wild. I mean, and this is, again, for me, this is the Breaking Bad element of this show. The sort of, we're going to just keep stringing you along. We're not going to exactly show you what, but you know what it is. Now, the first time watching through, did not realize it was the BTK killer. And I just kept thinking to myself, wow, they're really setting up a really cool villain for the next season or something. This is going to be one of those things. I wonder how long we're going to see these opens with this guy before he gets to be on the radar of Holden and Tench and now Dr. Carr.
Well, since his killing spree went from 1977 through 2005, we got a lot of seasons to cover with this guy.
Or
make that money, man.
Or never, I guess, is the answer to that. When is he going to wind up on the radar? Not.
Holden's going to be Tench's age by the time this comes to its conclusion.
Yeah. Well,
no more than that.
So
more than his age, but he'd be like 70.
So this is the episode where I think everybody has to get a little bit older, right? Because now that Dr. Carr is part of the team, she's actually expecting them to be professional. She's like, I want notes. I want to come up with an actual procedure for this. We have to keep formalizing everything. You guys are wasting too much potential not having this be the focus of what you do. It's almost like she wanted them to be like, can you just get other people to go do this, teaching on the road shit that you do? Why is this part of your life here? You guys are too good at this.
Yeah, you can see that this is where adding somebody with an outside perspective that doesn't have government bureaucracy as their first line of offense or defense. They just want to, let's just do this and make this the thing. And then she encounters the brick wall that is, bureaucratic red tape. And so
it really does show the difference between academia and government.
Yeah.
How government operates versus how they operate in the academic world.
Yeah, exactly, because government wants to solve a problem. And the academia likes to examine the ins and outs of it. They like to poke the blood splattered, messy gunk, and the government just wants to clean it up and say, "That's the job."
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it really is interesting.
Shit, I had something now. I totally forgot where I was going to go with that. But yeah, I mean, it's I think one of the things that Fincher does very well in his shows, and I think by episode 4 here, we're definitely into. I think he only directed the first 2 hours and the last 2 hours, and I, not being as prepared as I should, I guess, for this, I don't know who all the directors and writers are. We'll go ahead and update you on that as we move on, but there's a certain level of once the theme is established, they carry it through. And it's sort of like one of the things that's great about this show is how they are able to make those kinds of political commentaries without the show getting too political. I mean, it's like we don't really see a lot of things that I think actually True Detective did bring in to keep going back and forth there, where someone's like, oh yeah, we can't interview that guy because he's a senator now. But this, the only thing we really see that is kind of when their director
gets in their face about things and starts talking about how, I'm trying to protect you guys. You guys see me as this sort of overbearing, overly paranoid, worrying too much, out of touch. But, as long as I had an ability to be an umbrella over you, I have the ability to protect you. And I was working on getting funding for you. But, once this gets out of my hands, I've obviously skipped to the end of the episode. We'll get back to filling in the rest of it as we go. Once this gets out of my hands, now you're going to be accountable to a lot more people. There's going to be a lot more scrutiny. It's like, so yeah, you might get some funding, you might get some more accolades, but you also are going to have to answer up the chain, and that's opening the door.
Accountability level just ratcheted up. You can't just call this a hobby now. This is now a business.
Yeah.
Now there's an oversight committee that wants to see some results.
Yeah.
Which is,
We need results.
which is the result ultimately of academia doing its thing, right? If it came down to academia versus government getting something done, she winds, Dr. Carr, puts some wheels in motion. She even says, I've spent my whole career in academia. Let me see what I can do. And just by doing the, quote unquote networking, the glad handing, if you will, she's like, oh, I was at a party and I just mentioned the project we were working on to so and so, and he goes, yeah, that's why when I reached out to them for some grant money, they were like, oh yeah, you mean this thing, and they knew more about it than I did. He goes, that's always good when the boss finds out people outside his department knows more about what his people are doing than he does. I kind of, as chagrined as I am to say it, felt a little for this guy. I was like, man, that must suck. That must be really shitty to be middle management in the FBI. You know what I mean? Like, goddamn, it seems cool when you get there, but when you get to a moment like this, it must be a big pain in the ass.
Well, and he also said, that this stuff was information that was given out by somebody who shouldn't even know what's going on in my basement.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, so, there was the security breach that he kind of very politely alluded to that, of course, these days it's going to put you in front of a congressional oversight committee, but
not after not before it's discussed on Facebook ad nauseum for like 6 months. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's the grand jury right there. Fucking Facebook news feed.
Facebook and Twitter.
But that's all the bureaucracy part of the episode. This is the episode where I keep forgetting it's going to happen, and then I watch it, and that car crash comes out of nowhere, and I'm like, damn.
Oh yeah.
Before we get to that car crash, though, before we start talking about that, I think we need to discuss Monty Rissel, though.
Oh, all right.
It's what happens during that interview that ultimately leads to that car crash.
Nice.
It doesn't lead to it, but there's no cause and effect of it. But I get the point.
I beg to differ. It was them arguing over how Bill was reacting to Rissel and how he was reacting to the fact that he raped these women. It was that argument that took the attention away from the road, and he made an illegal turn and got a car accident. So, cause right there.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Okay, I see. I can see.
But the facts.
I can see.
Well, it's also, Tench has always kind of had this sort of bulletproof exterior to a degree. He seemed like he was the one who was he's removed from becoming too emotionally involved in this. We saw him start to cross at least into maybe you want to think it's in self-preservation, or suddenly he's thinking about his future, but being open to them writing a book or doing something with this data that they're collecting to help other people who are going to be doing investigations like this in the future. And he probably also thinks about it in terms of, well, I have a family, I'd want them to be living in a world that's, free of serial killers, as we're discovering that we're going to be calling them. But this is the first time we actually see a crack in that. And after the car accident, he does open up a little bit about how he's not just kind of being affected by what they're doing here in their project, but that he's got some shit going on at home too. And it's kind of an interesting setup because, there's a lot of talk being brought up by these killers about
interactions with parents and children. Mostly it's focused on sons and mothers, but does that mean it'll never eventually touch fathers? And is that where we think that Tench is starting to get? Is that what's the trigger here? You know what I mean?
Well, we kind of see that when they're talking to Rissel. He mentions that if I could have just stayed with my father, things would have been different. And so you start seeing a different type of connection going on. And, and now we got to say that Rissel is a completely opposite type of serial killer or sequence killer, as we're calling him still at this point, than Kemper. Because Rissel is, he's unorganized, he's sloppy, he's emotionally driven, and he wants revenge for what his girlfriend did for him. So he's taking it out on all the women around.
Yeah, he's just psychotic.
Yeah,
purely psychotic.
And he's
the guy's a nutcase. He's what you run into. I mean, he's what you expect more often from a killer. He just happened to kill more than one because once he got on that train, he wasn't getting off of it. I mean, like the one. I mean, come on, she wouldn't shut up. that was his defense. Yeah. She wouldn't shut up. So now you can picture this girl crying. Why are you doing this to me? Why is the questions you would expect from a victim having a knife held up to him, and he just sees it as I had to shut her up. I mean, the guy was a nut job. This was just a straight up psycho. Different from the Kempers and the others who were methodical. So I don't really think in the long run Rissel fits their mold. And I think he's the exception. Yes, he killed more than one person, but he didn't have a rhythm.
But what he's doing, what they're finding out in this interview, and I apologize, and I'm going to get right to you here real quickly. But what they're finding, if you look at the way the interviews play out versus and kind of tie them in with the interview or the cases that they're picking up, you start seeing that, like the unorganization, the sloppiness, the emotionally driven attacks, things like that nature. If you look at the case that's coming up in this episode, going to start out in this episode, it really kind of looks like that same modus operandi. It just,
which is and Zane, here you go. But I kind of feel like I don't know if that's sloppy that they have it mirroring like that. Like, oh, you guys just discover this in your interviews with this guy, and now there's one that's mirroring it in real life too. But we can talk about that going forward. Zane, the floor is yours.
Look, the thing that I'm going to say is that correlation is not a causation. Look, when you're collecting data for these kind of things, it is extremely hard to get qualifiable data. It's like very measurable aspects of someone's personality when they're doing this kind of thing, because you can't just say, on a scale of 1 to 20, how crazy are you? And expect to get an accurate response. But,
you mean it's not a pain scale?
Look, the DSM was created for a reason. And back then, homosexuality was classified as a mental disorder back in 1970. So I'm not saying that it's perfect, but I'm saying that you need to collect data, and I think that psychos, like you guys call them, I like to call them mentally ill patients. But that's just the academic in me.
No, I was gonna say this. See, this is you filling the Dr. Carr role for the team this week. You're kind of bringing us back to a more formalized approach to our behavioral science study here, which I appreciate. So, thank you. Go on.
I'm saying, look, most serial killers that we know them are not always the Hannibal Lecter intellectual that we like to make them out to be. Because I think I'll go as far as saying that a majority of serial killers do not plan their actions. I think a lot of them just, take a gun and they start shooting people. Like you're saying, I don't think that the guy was an exception to the rule, but more of the majority, because people are unpredictable, and they don't have a quote unquote good reason for doing what they do in terms of murdering. Because, if you look at why people murder each other, it's usually not for a very good reason. It's because of love or emotional reasons, most likely. But I'm just saying that, you cannot discard this guy's statements because they might not fit the quote-unquote mold of a Kemper or a Hannibal Lecter, for example. But it's still data that needs to be collected. And it's just a very wide field of mental illness and abnormal psychology. They need to include more than just the, intellectual smoke piping. Oh, I'm so smart. Oh, I can just murder this person. Oh, I'm such a genius. I should just jack myself off right here and now. Oh. Okay, I didn't mean to go sexual there, but
that was funny though. No.
You
know
what I mean? Like,
yeah, I get what you're saying. Absolutely.
I think if you look at what we've seen from the Dahmers, the Dayton Leroy Rogers, the guys like BTK and stuff like this, these were very methodical people. They were not on the whim, and I think Bissell was, or Rissell, whatever the hell his name was, I think he was more of an on the whim, taking advantage of the situation kind of guy, and it just like when the anger would build up, it was time to let it off through killing. Instead of, hitting the weights or playing sports or whatever, his release became killing people.
His killing was very much fear-based. He was afraid that someone would hear them. So he killed them to silence them. It was very emotionally driven because he was scared. He got scared. He killed them. And doing some research on his backstory, the real Rissell, he was not an intelligent person. His IQ level was less than 100. So saying that he was mentally ill, he was very mentally ill. He was, part of the episode, he said that I would have been a lawyer. No, he wouldn't have. He didn't have the mental cognitive ability to become a lawyer. But, everything about Monty Rissell, the only reason why, that he's not even a blip on the screen when it comes to serial killers in the overall scheme of things. Most people have never heard of him. In fact, I had never heard of him, and I did a lot of study on this stuff. I had to go back and say, what was his name? I thought they were saying Rizzo at first. I was like, who the fuck is this Rizzo
Frank
guy?
Rizzo, open your ears, jackass.
So the tie-in with the case that's coming up, that's the reason why they have this guy, is it just to show the type of killing that this guy did, being that it was basically more like the original kid. If you remember the first episode, second episode, they talked about passion killing and things like that. That's really kind of where we're getting back to with this with the case that's coming up.
Yeah. And I think the correlation comes from, it's kind of that red car theory, you want a red car and then everything you see is a red car,
Right.
And that's kind of, I think that gets shown in episode 4.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I was sort of maybe even premature in thinking that it was sort of could be a way that the show could be criticized as being formulaic, but it's like, okay, yeah, so we just interviewed this guy who skews our hypothesis a little bit. I mean, I think the other thing too is, for as much as all of this is new, and a lot of time Holden kind of feels like a little bit of like he's kind of like a Sheldon Cooper, you know what I mean? He's a little bit of Big Bang of investigators, because he kind of has that like, yeah, this is exactly what I've been saying, like I already knew this, like, guys,
in
for
my
real
spot.
Yeah, exactly, and so to kind of have shit, I don't know where I was going with that. Anyway,
I got something to play on that though. That's
it, because I totally fucking dropped the ball. I was like, "Fuck, man!" It was the Sheldon Cooper. Like
scoop and score.
He really took me out.
You're right though. You're exactly right. You hit this dead on the head, because this is the episode where Bills comes out and he basically tells them, "Hey, look, yeah, you might be able to do this better than them, but you have to respect the experience of the officers. They're going to want the case solved just as bad as anybody else. This is their town." So you see Bill kind of taking that role here of the leader.
Yeah.
Kind of stepping up to take the place that he should have been taking, or well, he was really in. He just been kind of taking the back seat. Now he's taking more of a front seat, and we're seeing a whole different Bill Tench.
Yeah, I mean, I think I kind of remember a little bit where I was going was that for him to be feeling like he's got this hypothesis that's being proven right all the time, to have somebody like Rissell who throws it off like that is not something that he was prepared for either, and I think the car accident is a little bit of a wake-up call for both of them, because they're both affected by meeting Rissell, and it is what brings tension. And it's interesting that you talk about him becoming more of a leader, because a lot of people talk about how leadership is kind of found in moments where you realize it's not about always doing it by the book or always being the best, but it's also about being vulnerable and about being somebody that people will be comfortable following. People would want to naturally follow. And so when he has this new vulnerability with Holden, where he starts telling him about his home life, that sort of opens the door for Holden to kind of look at him more as like a leader or a father type figure, or at least a big brother, in my mind.
Oh, and we see a connection happening here that we didn't get to see in the first 3 episodes with, from the moment they got into the car accident. That was like the thing that set off the next chain of events of them getting closer. Bill actually looking at him saying, "Hey, you're all right." Mm-hmm. That was the open door. Okay, now there's some care there. There's something going on. Yeah. And then it kind of it doesn't close, but it opens even wider when you get to the point where he's standing there. He goes and picks him up at his house, and he sees this awkward exchange between Bill and his son and wife there. So you really see that vulnerability that you're talking about. And now Holden's starting to see this whole different character, this whole different person in Bill. And believe it, okay, maybe this isn't right for him, so I'm going to do better to protect him from what these people are doing.
I think Bill is the most. Sorry.
No, go ahead, Dan. You started. Go ahead.
No, I think Bill is the most interesting person in this episode because he really delve into what he cares about and how he feels guilty because he feels like he might not be doing enough for his adopted son, which is something that you can really appreciate because it feels like Bill is not doing his job just for like all of humanity, but just for his family. And I think that it's a kind of stark contrast to a lot of news stories that we hear today because today there's like a 50% divorce rate, there's increased uses of alcohol and drugs and just bad parenting in general. And I think just kind of refreshing to look back and see that there are some parents who generally care about their families. And I think that's a really interesting take.
And I wanted to throw in, and it doesn't really have much to do with the storyline or anything else like that, but the descriptions and also what you saw in the mannerisms, this shows where we've come as far as not having, I don't want to say labels, but I want to say ideas about what was going on because he was describing an autistic child.
Oh, yeah.
And that boy's actions, I was screaming autism, but we don't know what autism is in the 70s.
Right.
We'd never heard of it. We just, or ADD or any of those other things. Kids were hyper, so this was the pre-labeling era. And so there was no label for it. He was just, obviously there's something wrong and it's my fault. I'm not doing something right is how he was seeing it. And so it's just, I just wanted to kind of toss that in there, like I said.
No, but there's also a possibility that he could be traumatized because that kid witnessed his parents dying, if I remember correctly. So there's also that added element to it. So it might not be just because he's autistic, but it might be because of past emotional trauma.
Yeah, and we'll find out more about that. I think it's in episode 5. So
yeah. Not too far away.
No, but and this is also the episode where Bill alludes. I mean, in the conversation when they're talking about Deborah and how she can't come and pick them up and this, that, and the other, he actually if you listen to the conversation, he alludes to the fact that he sees Holden almost as a son as well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, and Holden completely misses it. You know, as smart as he is, picking up on all these cues and clues about these murderers, he is dumb as a box of rocks when it comes to this. So, and we've already established that with his relationship, how he doesn't pick up on things within his relationships.
Yeah.
And Bill being one of those relationships, he doesn't pick up on the cues there either.
Yeah.
It's that typical I'm book smart but street smart, dumb as a brick.
Yeah,
Right.
it's amazing that he's getting laid the way he is, that he has like a hot chick girlfriend and that he picked her up at a bar, because it's like she, even at that time when she was asking him like, you know, did you buy those shoes? And he's like, no, my dad bought them for me, but I bought another pair in brown. You know, it's like he and him telling Bill that he's never dated anybody before her. You know, it's kind of a, why does this character qualify to be the hero of our show? You know what I mean? Like as part of the journey we're watching in the show is his coming of age as a sort of post-college, post-adolescent. Is it a career coming of age? Is it an early adulthood coming of age? You know, there's something to the fact that he doesn't have a lot of experience, but he can identify and sympathize and empathize with some of the sort of motivations of these people we're witnessing them interview. And I think that might be some of what I've been picking up on the whole first 4 episodes here, is they're setting Holden up to be just like one of these guys at some point, you know?
Yeah. Well, and that's the flaw in the hero that you look for.
Yeah, it's interesting to root for somebody who's kind of starting to veer down the path of becoming a serial killer.
I mean, yeah, true. I mean, but let's not forget about his girlfriend, because I think her psychopathology is really interesting in this episode as well, because she starts talking about sex and about drugs and about murdering, that she can be, quote, part of his case study. And I think we're starting to see some like bad juju with her, and maybe, you know, as a potentially corrupted influence on Holden.
Yeah. Well,
I wouldn't mind being corrupted by her, though.
Yeah. Seriously, there are moments where I'm just like, dude, you are just like one of the luckiest fuckers ever. You know, this show, probably for moments like that, is making me rediscover music from this time period. I am definitely going on a lot of nostalgia trip down memory lanes, or discovering for the first time music that I should have picked up on a lot earlier. Maybe sometimes that's even reflected in some of the posts on the Hollow9ine Facebook page. So if anyone's ever curious, like, wow, man, Dave's going really that's a deep cut from the 70s there. And it's like, well, yeah, I'm also watching Mindhunter, fuckers, and it's got a great soundtrack, so check it out. Well, one of the things, too, before we move too far away from tension parenting, this is also the episode where we see him like waking up super early while they're on the road and making sure to call home, because he just wants to make sure that he checks in with them, and he wanted to hear his wife's voice. And there is a real tender side to Tench that when we're talking about characters becoming really 3D, first of all, I could never picture being on the road and having to share a room with somebody. For all the traveling I've ever done with work, I've never been like in a double where I'm like, yo, there's another dude sleeping in that bed right there. I'm like, I have nothing against people and how they live, like, you know, different people, different lifestyles, whatever. My mind is just like, I don't want to deal with someone else having to share a bathroom with somebody else, having to fucking listen to someone fart in the middle of the night. I don't want to have any of that shit. I want to be able to just kind of chill in the room when I'm chilling in the room and be out at work. And if I need to come back and sleep, I don't have to worry about somebody else waking up early to call their family. Like, I kept thinking, is that supposed to be, is Holden awake and hearing that? Or is he kind of being polite and staying, you know, and like staying asleep? Or is he actually sleeping through it? Is this another example of all this stuff flies literally over Holden's head? Or is Holden starting to realize, I don't have what he has, and I don't think I'm going to get it? You know, it doesn't seem like I'm on the path to getting what Bill has.
I don't think Holden really cares, to be honest. I mean, he's having a lot of sex with a beautiful girl, and he's a busy FBI guy, so I don't think he exactly desires a family yet.
I have to say that I think that this is a chance for him to see. He's already seen. He's already this. Does the phone call come before he picks him up at his house? Comes after, doesn't it?
It comes after.
Yeah, and I think this just kind of nails that. I just think that nails things home for him because I think he hears everything. And, you know, just like I was talking about earlier about how what we got it was a humanization of the guys that were in lockup, the serial killers. This is also a moment where you get some humanization of the guys that are tracking them down. And I think that was sort of the other side of that scale being displayed. And I think Holden paid attention. I think he did see it, and I think he did hear it.
Okay. I guess we'll find out. Yeah. We'll find out later whether Holden is able to take any of this to heart and make it work for him or not. But before then, because they are still on the road teaching, and we must get. I don't know. I got the impression on the rewatch this time that at this point, every class they've taught, someone has come up to them after the class and said, "Hey, I've got some kind of case that I've got that has really just baffled us. I was wondering if I could have a few moments of your time," because they're putting their stuff in their car, and the other guy and Holden goes, "Hey, did you see that guy over there looking at us?" I give it like under a minute before he comes over to the car and asks us for help, and like Bill says, "Yeah, I'll take that bet," and he goes, "All right, if you loser buys dinner," you know, it's like. When you have a game like that built around this kind of thing, it means it happens a lot, right?
Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
I almost wonder when they were sitting there having that conversation, if they almost like he was almost wanting it to happen. Like he wants him to come over, but then you got the cop sitting over there. He kind of looks a little nervous, doesn't want to really encroach on them. He's just taking it, keeping back. Then when he finally does come over, it's almost like that, aha, see, I told you so.
Yeah.
It's that play. There's almost a little bit of playfulness to it.
I was going to say, it reminded me a little bit of the same way they examine like the dynamics of meeting somebody at a bar. You know, it's like the way that they're talking about the behavior. It's like, this is, he's like, oh yeah, he's over there building up the nerve to come over and talk to us. You know what I mean? It's sort of like we're the intimidating hot chicks at the bar, and this guy's going to try and ask us for our number real quick, and it was kind of like, I guess I didn't catch that on the first watch, but it really hit me this time. I'm like, wow, it's interesting how many different situations the same type of dynamics kind of come into play. Maybe that's just from a psychological perspective. I don't know. Zane, what do you think about that?
No, I mean, I don't think. I think you guys are putting like way more. I think you guys are putting a lot more into this than it actually is. But I do agree that it probably is like an indication that this does happen a lot. But I think you guys are kind of putting your own twist on it. I mean, yeesh. I can't think of a better analogy than the bar analogy. But I'm just saying, yeah, I mean, these are people with experience and. Obviously, you're going to ask someone with more experience to help you. And, yeah, I think it's more like a storytelling framing device than anything else. Or at least I don't think the writers intended it to be anything more than just that.
Roger. I don't know. CJ, you look like you disagree. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, this is... They're showing true life, and when you hear the cop talking to them in the beginning, he's almost like embarrassed to even be telling them about it. Like, hey, we can't hold our own shit. I don't know where to go with this. Help me out, type of thing. And he gets really defensive when they start asking him questions about it. He starts even getting defensive about it. And that defensive reaction is usually a reaction most people give when they feel like they're not doing their job right or they haven't done something right. As they're sitting there talking, having coffee, and they're like, well, we're just going to go over these questions again. You probably already asked them. You probably already did this, but we're just covering our bases because we're really coming into this cold. So that just the reaction, and the actors do such a great job portraying these characters and kind of given that that feeling of, this is kind of real life interaction type, how it should go down. So I think there's a whole lot more underneath the scenes than what we just see. I think there's a lot going on behind. I mean, there's so much backstory that's happening, and you kind of feel it as you're watching them play this out.
Yeah.
Especially
I mean, I guess when they're talking to the guy, it could be like an indication that they're kind of like interviewing him the same as they would of a serial killer, for example. So maybe it's an indication that maybe they're spending a little bit too much time with serial killers and murderers and not enough time with like real people. Like maybe that's a layer underneath that.
Well, definitely Holden, because Tench immediately, has to sort of ease the situation, because Holden is coming off as if he's showing off to this officer, and one of the things that I think is interesting that we might want to look at is that the officers that we've seen, even though this is something that we get the idea has been happening to them a lot as they've been teaching classes, the officers that the show has chosen to highlight have gotten progressively younger. The first one that they meet in the first or second episode, very salty, has been he's been doing this for a long time. What you tell me right now? What does a broom handle up a person's ass mean? You know what I mean? It's like, and when they don't have a perfect answer for him, he's kind of like the example of the staunch fake news. I'm not going to believe it, even if you're showing me data. You know what I mean? Like he's trying to immediately say what Holden and Tench are doing is kind of worthless. Next guy down, he's sort of a few years younger, still kind of on the older side, but is at least a little more open to this new methodologies that Holden and Tench are teaching. And then when he sees them pay off, he's immediately ready to bow down and call these guys, you guys are geniuses, you're Sherlock Holmes. This officer is so much younger than those two guys, so he's already coming at it from a perspective of being a young detective, and that maybe he might be kind of like the result of there just really wasn't anyone else even remotely as qualified as him, and so they bumped him up to detective, and now he's got this case that is just kind of throwing him off completely. But he's at least young enough that he will immediately listen to what these guys are saying, and so when Holden is kind of almost criticizing him with the way he's asking him about how the case has been handled so far, Tench has to jump in right away and remind him, we're just coming to this cold. We need to go over this so that we can catch up. But then he's quick when he and Holden are alone to go, what the fuck is your problem, dude? Like, why would you rub it in this guy's face that you're smarter than him? It's like, what are you going to get? I mean, how is it going to help our investigation for you to remind him that we're better than him or that he doesn't know as much as we do,
Yeah, it's definitely a voice of wisdom there.
But that's, I think, a little bit more of what Zane might be kind of alluding to with if you've been spending too much time with the Ed Kempers or the sort of minds that are trying to use that they're being driven a little bit by their narcissism. We start to see that being played out in a scenario where they're not interviewing a serial killer, where there isn't one of those guys in the room, and if Holden is bringing that out of those interrogations and into their other work, that's definitely something that Tench is probably getting a little worried about, in my mind.
Yeah, it's really hard to separate kind of like who you are and what you do, because there's always that kind of separation. Like, not every FBI agent is like this hardened alcoholic who beats his wife every night. There's a lot. I think labeling is one of the biggest pet peeves of mine. It's because it overgeneralizes a lot of things. And I think maybe Holden and his ideation of being a really kind of famous and great FBI agent is starting to interweave into who he actually is.
See, I see it. That's funny. Like, there's a way to see it as positive. I'm going, he's just becoming a serial killer. He's becoming closer and closer to one of the guys he's interviewing, and this.
But no, I just mean what's the difference between a serial killer and an FBI agent?
Yeah.
Or someone who like who has to kill people on a semi basis, you know?
Yeah. Or at least
One
it's,
wears a suit.
yeah, and has a badge and it's government sanctioned, and the other is, according to them at the time, a deviant of society.
No, but I mean like emotionally. It's like, you know, as an FBI agent, you know, is going to feel horrible about killing someone probably, and you know, but I feel like there's a distinction between being crazy and just being an asshole. And you know,
I would hope so, for some of our sakes. For
like,
mine in particular.
If I had to diagnose you guys would not like the answer.
Uh-oh. That's and this is only the first time we've hung out, man. Uh-oh.
Yeah, uh-oh.
So,
But how are you guys going to affect me? That's my issue.
oh, there you go. See, the mirror works both ways there.
Exactly.
Now, the case that they get pulled into here in Altoona, the details we get are pretty intense, right? This is where we get a little bit more of a Silence of the Lambs kind of situation going on. But it's so intense that this officer is telling them about it. He can't even bring himself to say some of the things out loud, you know? And it's really... I really like the dynamic there, especially because they don't solve it by the end of this episode. You know what I mean? This is something that's still going to be, it's still up in the air by the time we leave. So it's not outside the realm of possibility to expect that we're obviously going to come back to this. And when we do, you know, we get to see what happens when people are exposed to Tench and Holden just as much as we see what happens to Holden and Tench when they're exposed to serial killers.
I think that it was this officer. This is obviously his first murder. You know?
Yeah.
And I don't think he ever expected to encounter anything like that in his little town of Altoona. You know, I mean, that just doesn't that doesn't happen here in these parts. That kind of thing, you know, and it certainly can't be one of us.
Yeah,
you know,
he said it perfect right there. Our little town of Altoona, and. When you have those little towns and everybody knows everybody, he's using her full name, Beverly Jean. He's talking about her like she's the girl that he went to high school with. Maybe they even went out on some dates in high school. They've known each other for years and years. So when you look at what's going on, this is very personal for this guy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very, the trauma is causing so much stress in him. It's just it's hard to understand the whole mindset when it's someone that close to you versus someone like Tench and Holden. When they come in, they don't know her. She's just another case. She's just another number. So when they're looking at it completely unobjectively. So they start throwing out these people like the fiance. Well, we need to interview the fiance. Oh, it would never be him. No, well, we need to interview him. We just need to cover our bases.
Yeah, it would never be him. So I let him leave town for a couple days because, I'll vouch that he'll come back. And you're like, they're both like, all right, dude. Even Tench is probably like, all right. Even though I told Holden not to be mean to you, that's just fucking stupid, dude. Are you serious?
And that's a real pendulum swing to where we've come to today, because now the first suspect is, you know, the other person. And it's funny because, and I don't say funny in a comical way, but right here in this town, we're celebrating not celebrating, but we're seeing the 1-year anniversary of the most horrific thing that's ever happened here in this little town that I live in called Estacada. On Mother's Day, a dude walked into our little teeny grocery store that is 3 blocks from my house carrying his mom's head in his hand.
Whoa.
Yeah. Now, everybody knows this guy. His family's been known. He's been known. The head that belonged.
Every 2 episodes, guys out there in listener land, every 2 episodes, TW is going to drop a bomb like this on us. That's
so, what you get is you get all the people that live here that, you know, I mean, because I've only been here for 4 years, but you start talking to some of the neighbors. I'm 2 doors down from the mayor, and he's like, I just can't believe it. You know, I mean, it just, you know, and you get that. you go down. I mean, the store closed down for a couple days. There was a big story in the paper about the little old man who's kind of like he's sort of like a greeter everybody knows that kind of got slashed up a little bit when the guy walked in before they subdued him.
Wow.
And it's head in one hand, knife in the other, and you just don't think of that in this town of 3,000 people. You know? So when I was watching the Altoona episode and I'm sitting here looking at this cop, I'm like, I know where his mindset is. He cannot believe anybody that he's known or gone to school with, because that's just it. I mean, these people went to school with this guy. They knew this guy. People that I'm up and down the street from knew this guy for years. His family owned businesses here in town. And it's just not, to take the word, it's just not conceivable. I mean, it is one of the true meanings of the word inconceivable for it to happen. And that's what that police officer is dealing with. He cannot look at any of these people he's known and think this has happened. And that's where that outside perspective comes in and says, clear the deck, clear the slate. We're going to do this surgically.
Wow. Mm-hmm. I'm not over the fact that this is like we could not have had a better person on this podcast, TW. Oh my God, that's insane. I mean, I don't know how much more I got for this right now. I might be done now. That might have been too much.
But that guy had mother issues.
Yeah.
And the family dog.
Yeah, he killed the dog.
He killed the family dog.
That was like
episode and this episode all rolled into one.
Yeah, how did this not come up with the dogs getting their throat slit in episode 3? Either way, let's keep this as an every 2 episodes thing. So next time, whatever comes to mind that is about something that actually happened to TW related to Mindhunter, save it for episode 6.
Okay.
It'll be the even numbered episodes for all the people out in listener land.
Yeah. You're going to need to get the bomb sound effect to just kind of go off.
Like I'll subtly, like in post, I'll subtly start the ticking clock, like 30 seconds before the bomb drops.
And here it comes.
And we'll be listening to it going, wait, is that the ticking? Boom! Oh my God! TW has been to space. No shit, dude. And the world is flat. What? No! Oh my God!
Okay, so we got guitar lessons from one of the Manson family, and a guy that walked in with his mom's head in his hand at a grocery store. So that's if you're keeping track, that's put those on your shirt.
And the store was 3 blocks from your house. Next time, we're gonna find out that the BTK killer actually installed the alarm system that's in the house you moved into. And what else? What other predictions are out there in listener land? Send us in an email.
We might have to use that as a part of the pool that we're betting on.
Yeah.
Next prediction.
How many times will Maresca say "True Detective"? And what? What could the poll be? How much more intense will TW's personal revelation be? Or by the end of the season, will TW be like, all right, guys, look, seriously, my name is actually this, and I am a serial killer. My name is actually John Bradshaw.
I'll do the episode in my skin suit, okay?
First thing, as I'm doing the introductions, we get to TW, and he goes, would you fuck me? I'd fuck me.
Guys, I have a confession to make.
Oh shit! Oh shit! It's happening! The Great Pumpkin is rising.
I am, in fact, a serial killer. I kill Captain Crunch every time I eat some of his sponge.
Shit. There you go. Like from Hackers. I'm Matthew Lillard from Hackers. Oh, man. Well, is there anything before... we didn't talk about Debbie meeting Dr. Carr. Just real quick, we could talk about how Holden saw. We're seeing different shades of each character. We got to see Jealous Debbie a little bit there, right? Because she definitely was hoping Dr. Carr was an old lady who walked in before Anna Torv, and then someone else who's not as hot as Anna Torv, and then Anna Torv shows up, and it's like, oh, this hot chick is who my boyfriend works with now. Got it.
Some self-esteem issues.
But they both like Durkheim, so they had a little bit of a bonding moment, too. So there was this kind of a, all right, maybe this will be okay.
Yeah, you kind of get the feeling of a love triangle thing going on here.
Mm.
He likes her, she likes her.
Ah.
The thing
Well,
going
you
on.
just took the whole Jay Giles song and moved it over a notch.
Just a little bit.
Well, I think it's he likes both of them, and he likes both of them for different reasons. You know what I mean? And so it's again playing to the fact that he's got a little bit of a duality of character going on.
Yeah.
Well, the intelligence of both women are just absolutely astounding. I mean,
Yeah.
you look at what they've done with these two female leading characters, and it blows your mind. Just watching it,
Yeah.
you almost wish that they would they would dive a little deeper into what conversations that they could have got into.
Yeah.
That would have been interesting watching them kind of verbally masturbate Holden there for a while.
Or would Holden even realize he's being, since he misses things, would he even realize what's going on? Like, dude, you're having a threesome right now, man. How are you missing this? Like, dude, it's happening at the table. It's happening at the
He has to look down and go, how did that happen?
Hashtag it's happening at the table. From now on, hey, where did that happen? It happened at the table. Oh man, you had sex with her at the table. Zane's like, why did I come on this show? Oh man. All right. Well, I think that they do get we kind of already talked about them getting permanent funding. I like that this is the episode that ends with them all going down in the elevator together, right? And they kind of all slowly, as smiles creep onto all of their faces. At first they kind of got the guy's like, fine, fuck you. You found your own money? Fine. Eat shit, bitches. Go down to the basement together. And they're all kind of like looking out the door, looking at the camera. And then slowly they all smile. And it's like, oh shit. Yep, the team is complete now.
The A-team.
I love it. I love it.
CJ was going to wet himself when you said going down in the elevator, though.
Going down.
We're still doing phrasing, right?
Yeah, phrasing. Yes, there you go. All right, well, I think that brings us to the end of our case study for episode 4 here. We've hit on all the high notes, and we've left all the dangling threads right where they need to be for us to come back and continue our behavioral sciences study of the Netflix original program Mindhunter when we come back for episode 5. So, CJ, tell us what you've got going on in the world of Internetica production, whatever you want to hawk. This is the moment to pimp your shit.
All right. Well, coming up in October, I know it's awful early, but to be talking about this, but
I was about to say, holy October, shit! What month is it right now? Isn't it Mother's Day?
I know it's early, but we got I got your 6-2 going on down in Charlotte, North Carolina, and we are going to be doing a lot of stuff surrounding that over on the Barracks Lawyers, which you can hear every Sunday over on that Spreaker app. Just go and download Spreaker, and you can hear a bunch of guys talking about absolutely nothing, and it's a whole lot of fun about our experiences that we shared in the military. And I just wanted to say it's been such a pleasure to be able to share this episode and the last episode with Zane. It was great to get to know him, and it was a lot of fun. So
thank you.
Yeah, we can do this again.
Absolutely. All right, TW, tell me what do you got going on, buddy? What do you want the world to know about?
It's summertime, so I'm pretty much locked in the closet under the stairs, putting the voice to the gay romances, and watching it sell like hotcakes. So one of my alter egos.
One after another. This guy. Love this guy.
And then other than that, it's during the summer. This is kind of the height of working with my newfies. So there's draft cart work, water work, and trying to bring the beehives back to life. So as a novice bee handler, I've got my first 2 hives. I might add more next year. We'll see. That means Dave definitely going to be getting himself a jar of honey. CJ, if there's more, I'll send some to you. And this has been a blast doing this. I get a kick out of it, and it makes me watch a show with a whole different sort of mindset.
I'm going to announce right now for everybody listening to this, once bee season has been completed, we are going to do a podcast that's just going to do reviews of all the things we use TW's honey to make, starting with tea and honey and lemon and all the way to like honey sticky buns, and it's going to be called Hive Mind. Okay,
Nice.
guys. Hollow9ine's Hive Mind.
Excellent.
You heard it right here on Mindhunter. It's a whole bunch of double entendre, guys. Think about words. That's all I'm saying. Zane, thank you so much for joining us for this episode and last episode. Let's tell everybody where they can find you doing all the things you do that you're so freaking good at, the voodoo that you're able to pull off with Yabbering with Zane. Tell the folks listening where they can find your work. Pimp your shit.
My bad. I just sleep, walk through everything.
Well, there you go. Nothing like being humble, folks. All right. So, until next time. Okay. Oh, okay. Hold on. There's a real sign off coming. Here you go. Hold on. After you.
Do I talk now?
Yes. Now is your time. You talk.
Oh, really? So now is the time. It's not 2 weeks from now. It's not yesterday evening. It's now.
That's the rumor.
Do the real sign off on where I can, show the people my wonderful ideologies and my random thoughts and other shit. Now is the time. Sorry, I'm just prolonging this suffering.
Longest tease ever.
Hey,
Captain Build Up.
I'm good at foreplay, so gotta use my skills whenever I can. So yes, you can check me out on Facebook at Yabbering with Zane, which is was a weekly college radio show, which is now going on hiatus. So now is the perfect time for you to sit down on your bed or anywhere that's comfy, get your headphones, drink some, beer or something, and just relax with an hour of me spewing in your ear the garbage that is spewing around in my head. And, you can also, check me out on Facebook at Zane Sexton. And, just check me out, guys. Swipe right. Is it? Yeah, swipe right.
Swipe right.
Zany experience.
CJ's gonna have an aneurysm.
And he'll soon to be a Tangent City resident like the rest of us. Mr. Zane Sexton, thank you for joining us and hanging out and talking about Mindhunter. Until next time, folks, do your research, do your homework, be ready, because now everything's getting serious. We're all about publishing novels. We're all about going further, and we're going to start talking to some real serial killers and get this whole handle on this whole thing that is the mind of madness. So until then, we will see you at the next meeting. You've been listening to the Hollow9ine Network, bringing you the very best in fan-made media. That's the word hollow, the number 9, I-N-E. Now broadcasting from our new home on the web, Hollow9ine.com, where you can find info on all of our awesome programming as well as the team behind the shows. Leave us your feedback, join in the conversation, and be a part of the action. Find the Hollow9ine Network on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Snapchat. Rate and review us on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, or wherever you find your podcasts. Email us at info@hollow9ine.com or at hollow9podcast@gmail.com. Join in the fun. Hollow9ine.